Dear friends, welcome to Tutorial 4 of Microsoft Excel. Today we will learn about logical functions like AND, OR, IF and Iferror functions in Microsoft Excel. We will also learn nesting of functions in IF function. These are handy and popular tools we frequently use to use logic in large data set in Microsoft Excel. We will start with AND and OR function. Like the name suggests, if we want to check whether all the mentioned logics are correct or not, we use AND function, whereas, to check if any of the mentioned logic is correct or not, we use OR function. In both the functions, we need at least two logics to judge the trueness. The results obtained through these two functions are in form of true or false. If all the logics in AND function are found valid or correct, Excel will display the result as true or otherwise false. Similarly, if any of the logics in OR function is found valid or correct, Excel will display the result as true or otherwise false. Thus, to remember, AND means all the given logics and OR means any one of the given logics. To illustrate AND and OR function in Excel, we have added few more details in the table which we used in previous 3 tutorials. We are now having the budgeted numbers for gross revenues and cost of goods both as percentage of gross revenue as well as in dollar values. Firstly, we will perform the AND function to check for those departments which have achieved higher or equal gross revenue and at the same time were able to cut down their cost of goods as per the budgeted numbers. In cell J9 against Department 1, after an equals sign we type AND and press a tab key. Excel will ask for logical 1, logical 2 and so on. In our case, we are going to build only two logics. Firstly, we will insert the logic for gross revenue as D9 greater than or equal to G9. Please note, we are not keeping the greater than sign under double quotes as we did while learning average if, average ifs, sum ifs, count ifs etc. The second logical is for cost of goods, thus we will insert F9 and a less than sign followed by I9. Once the two logical are inserted, we press the Enter key on our keyboard to check the result. Now, we will follow the same process to check AND logic for the remaining 11 departments. We see that Department 2 and 6 selling product green and Department 8 and 12 selling product blue are true. This means that these departments have achieved higher gross revenues and lowered their cost of goods from the budgeted numbers for financial year 2020. Now, we repeat the same logical with OR function. This time, our objective is to check whether the departments have achieved higher or equal gross revenue or were able to cut down their cost of goods as per the budgeted numbers. In cell J9, after an equals sign we type OR and press tab key on the keyboard. Similar to the AND function, Excel asks you to insert logical 1, logical 2 and so on. First logical is for gross revenue as D9 greater than or equal to G9. The second logical is for cost of goods as F9 less than I9. We press the Enter key on our keyboard and follow the same process to check OR logic for the remaining 11 departments. We see that apart from Department 2, 6, 8 and 12, Department 3 selling product green has not achieved its gross revenues target but has lowered its cost of goods from the budgeted numbers for financial year 2020. Department 11 has achieved both gross revenues and cost of goods as budgeted for financial year 2020. I hope this tutorial was helpful in learning AND and OR functions in Excel. We will now learn IF function, which is a critical command in terms of its usage in Excel. This function helps us to validate a statement and calculate the results as per its trueness. As the name suggests, IF is also a logical function like AND and OR, but rather than just assessing the results as true or false, we go a step ahead and provide instructions to Excel on what to do with the result if it is true and what if it is false. To learn this, I will be using the same table as we used for learning AND and OR functions. We will learn this function in 2 steps. First we do a simple text value display and later we will put a formula in place of text if the logic is true or false. For text display, our task is to identify those departments which have achieved gross revenue of more than budgeted number. If the department has achieved the target budgeted number of gross revenue, the employees of that department will be eligible for a bonus, otherwise they will not receive any bonus. To do so, in cell J9 after an equals sign, we type if and press Tab key. Excel will ask you for three things: first is logic, second is what to display or calculate if the value is true, and lastly what to display or calculate if the value is false. We will create logic as if actual gross revenue in cell D9 is greater than budgeted gross revenue in cell G9. Thus if the value in D9 is greater than G9, that is the argument is true, we type bonus under double quotes followed by a comma. If the argument is false, we say no bonus under double quotes. Another note, text in Excel formulas are always kept under double quotes. If we enter no text within the double quotes, the value will be displayed as blank. We repeat this for all the remaining 11 departments, and as the result says, employees of departments 2 and 6 selling product green and departments 8 and 12 selling product blue are eligible for the bonus pay, others will get no bonus. Now we will learn to use formula instead of text in if function if logic entered is true or false. As performed previously, for departments achieving gross revenue more than budget, the employees of that particular department are eligible for bonuses. Now this time, we will calculate the total bonus amount of eligible departments. In cell L8, I have kept the bonus amount as 20% of the additional gross revenue from the budgeted number of the departments which qualifies for bonus. For departments which don't qualify for bonus, we will display it as 0. In cell J9 after an equals sign, we type if and press Tab key. We will again create logic as actual gross revenue in cell D9 is greater than budgeted gross revenue in cell G9. If true, which means value in D9 is greater than G9, we open a parenthesis and calculate the additional revenue by subtracting G9 from D9. Now, after closing the parenthesis, we multiply the additional gross revenue by 20% as defined in L8. After a comma sign we will enter 0, which means no bonuses to employees of non-qualifying departments. We repeat this for all the remaining 11 departments. We will find that employees of Department 2 and 8 will receive total bonus of $1,000 and of Departments 6 and 12 will receive total bonus of $2,000. We now will learn how to deal with the errors you may receive knowing the formula is right using Iferror Function. For this, we will calculate the additional gross revenues of department which have either achieved the budgeted target or more than it. For this we first use the if function. In cell J9 after an equals sign we will type if followed by a tab key. As logic, we will provide if actual gross revenue in cell D9 is more than or equal to budgeted gross revenue in cell G9. If the logic is true, we will first calculate the additional actual gross revenues from the budgeted number by opening a parenthesis and subtracting G9 from D9. Thereafter, after closing the parenthesis, divide the additional actual gross revenues with the budgeted number which is in cell G9. If logic is false we place 0 as a value. After pressing an enter button, we calculate this for the remaining 11 departments. For better understanding, we change the cell formatting this time as percentages. Departments 4, 7 and 9, which are cost centers and since have their budget as 0, showing an error as #div/0, which means error due to dividing a number by 0. As we have learnt in mathematics, result of any number when divided by a 0 is infinity, thus Excel is flashing this div error. Since we know that our formula is correct, we would like to show this div error as 0 too. To do this, we will now use Iferror Function. To do this in cell J9, after an equal sign we type Iferror and a tab key on keyboard. Now we retype the if function we used earlier, which was showing div error for cost centers. We open an if function and the logic is D9 greater than or equal to G9. If true, we open a bracket and type D9 minus G9 and close the bracket. We not divide this with G9. If false, we put the value as 0. Once we insert the closing bracket for the second if function, Excel will request for the value in case the formula entered by us results in an error. For the time being we again put it as 0. We may also choose to enter another function or value or text as per our requirements. Now we repeat this for all the other 11 departments. We will observe that the errors have been replaced with 0. I hope this tutorial was helpful in learning if and Iferror functions in Excel. While using if function, it is very common to use it with other functions nested into it such as and, or, min, max sum, average and if itself. I will show you nesting of if with and or and if with if. Once you learn how to use nesting of these functions with if function, you can practice it at your ease with other functions too. Let's practice a nesting of if with and. Firstly, for and function, as we did earlier in this tutorial, we will check if both the logics, that is departments which have achieved higher or equal gross revenue and at the same time were able to cut down their cost of goods as per the budgeted numbers, holds true or not. Now we will build a rationale, that if the result of and function is true, the employees of those departments will be eligible for bonuses, otherwise there will be no bonus. To do this, in cell J9, after an equals sign, we start with if function. In place of a logical test we start with another function which is and. For and function, our first logic is if actual gross revenue, which is cell D9, is more than or equal to budgeted gross revenue, which is cell G9. The second logic is whether the actual cost of goods in cell F9 is less than the budgeted cost of goods in cell I9. If the result of and function is true, which means both the logics are true for continuing with if function, we type bonus. If the result of and function is false, which means both or one of the logics are false, we press no bonus. We press enter and repeat this for remaining 11 departments. Thus, as we found out with and function earlier in this tutorial, departments 2, 6, 8 and 12 resulted in true, thus the if function shows it as bonus, whereas other departments resulted as false, thus if function shows it as no bonus. Similarly, we use if with or nesting. Like we did in or function, if the departments have achieved higher or equal gross revenue or were able to cut down their cost of goods as per the budgeted numbers, will be awarded bonuses, otherwise there will be no bonus. In cell J9, after an equals sign, we start with if function and after pressing a tab key we type or and again press a tab key. Our first logic is if actual gross revenue, which is cell D9, is more than or equal to budgeted gross revenue, which is cell G9. The second logic is whether the actual cost of goods in cell F9 is less than the budgeted cost of goods in cell I9. If the result of or function is true, which means any of the two logics are true for continuing with if function, we type bonus. If the result of or function is false, which means none of the logics are true, we press no bonus. We press enter and repeat this for remaining 11 departments. Thus, as we found out with or function earlier in this tutorial, apart from employees of departments 1, 5 and 10, all the employees of other departments will be eligible for a bonus. We should now learn nesting if function with another if function. We can nest up to 7 if functions to create a complex if function. In this tutorial, our first if function will check if the budgeted gross revenue is equal to 0 or not. This is to rectify any div errors. Secondly, if the budgeted gross revenue is more than or equal to the budget, we will calculate additional gross revenues from its budget as a percentage of the budgeted target. To do this, in call J9, after starting the first if function, we will first check whether the value in budgeted gross revenue, which is cell G9, is equal to 0 or not. If the value in G9 is 0, we will put 0 as result, but if the value is not 0, we nest another if function. This time our logic is whether the actual gross revenue in cell D9 is more than or equal to the budgeted gross revenue of the department in cell G9. If the logic in the second nested if function is true, we open a parenthesis and calculate the additional revenue by subtracting G9 from D9. Now, after closing the parenthesis, we divide this value by G9. Since, in the first if function we have already checked for 0 values in column G, we will not get any div errors. After a comma, if the logic in second nested if function is false, we put the value as 0. While closing the functions with small bracket sign, we will see that Excel highlights the opening small bracket to which the closing small bracket belongs to. In our case, the first closing small bracket belongs to the second nested if function and the second closing small bracket belongs to the first if function. We repeat this for the remaining 11 departments. We observe that this time Excel has not flashed any errors against the cost centers, which are departments 4, 7 and 9. As per the results, departments 6 and 8 have achieved 9% higher gross revenue as compared to their budget for financial year 2020. For department 2, it is 11%, and for department 12 it is 13%. I recommend you to keep learning nesting of other functions in if function of Excel. I hope this tutorial was helpful in learning nesting of other functions in if function of Microsoft Excel. That's it for this tutorial. We wish you good luck for learning other functions in Microsoft Excel. If you liked the video, please do hit the like button for this video and also subscribe to our channel Management Gen to receive all the updates.